I always tell my team what they know about me is I encourage failing a lot. And I think if I don't fail, I'm not innovating. Because as an innovator, you need to fail first. If you have an idea and then you're just so smooth, just ask yourself behind, say, are you really innovating or you're just doing the same thing?
Our featured speaker today is Head of Donor Relations and Fundraising at Impact Africa Network and founder of Kosi Africa, a non-profitable organization designed to empower young Africans through education, mentorship, and leadership training while nurturing their passion for innovation, environmentalism, and community volunteerism. Wycliffe, it's a great pleasure to have you as our featured speaker today. Thank you so much for being willing to share your journey with us.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
I was wondering if you might kind of lead us off talking about some of your earlier experiences in life, and maybe how some of them and the mentors you met along the way influenced the direction you took, your personal and professional development.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you said, I'm Wycliffe Barasa, and yeah, I'll start with. For me, I was born in a very humble background, um, and then things started changing when I was born. Where actually, I lost my mom and I survived. For that was the first thing. But I had my dad. After 2 years, I lost my dad too. Then I had to actually migrate from my country, that was Kenya, going to Uganda. Oh, I think I had a very good um, aunt who took care about me. And after 5 years, things changed. My aunt was on a mission. She was part of people who went to Rwanda for peacemaking, and that's the time also she was among people who actually we lost her. But the reality is that's the time I found myself to the streets in Kampala. For the age of 5, I had this dream of I want to be a doctor at early age, as my aunt wanted me to. But I still remember when my aunt told me something like when she was going, she said, I have only something called education in your life. If I won't come back, take care of your education. And I think at 5 years, things changed. Yes, I survived in the street for 7 years, but I think I learned a lot. I learned a lot being in the street at a young age, 5 years. And I think what I was doing in the street is, I remember until today, what I said, like I was in the street, but I was not born to be in the street. That's something I believed in. And I saw many young people being girls at the age of 7, 8, being raped by normal people. And what came in my mind, I was like, at the age of 8, what should I do at the age of 8? At the age of 9, we decided not. I said, I don't want to be a street kid anymore because street kids are being, if you want to know street kids, how they clothe. For I decided to start washing trailers for at that age. And I think that's where actually I started seeing, okay, my life is changing. Bought myself clothes. I started helping other kids who come into the street. Um, we stopped sleeping in the street. We went to sleep away from towns with other kids just to protect ourselves. But at the same time, what came in my mind was you need to go to school. And I remember those days in 2001 and 2, what happened was Uganda, we had free education in Uganda but the biggest opportunity for me was how like they were reading under trees. It was an opportunity as a street kid for me to join them meters away. Well, that's how I went to school when I was in the street until I was 12. 12 years, but I got myself back to, I had to actually move away from Kampala to the neighboring, to the border, where now, I think that's where God wanted me to go, where I was born. That's like Busia, the border between Kenya and Uganda. And I continued watching their trailers, but sometimes God wants you to understand and actually like, okay, you need to pass through an experience to come and solve something. But at the time I met my grandma my first time, which I don't want to go how I met her and everything. And I met my grandma when she was around 80 something years. And they knew I was dead. Or, and she was, when I met her, we just connected at that moment. And I went now back to school. I went back with her. And at the age of 80, this is a grandma who actually, she's my mentor. She's now 107 years. So I want to celebrate her birthday like in the next 1 month. And I think she's the one who actually empowered me to go back to school at the age of 80, 86. I remember her actually waking up in the morning at 4 a.m. because she didn't want us to know she goes to dig at night. When I actually discovered that, I started going with her at night, and she was giving me stories on how, how my dad was so in terms of helping people in the community, and what her son wanted to do. And I was like, okay, I want to be someone who help people the way my dad wanted to. But just, I don't want to say all the story, but the reality is, I think that experience for me has mentored me to be to do what I do today. Because one of the things is what I passed through. I think she told me one thing, like the thing you pass through in the street and what you have passed through is God wanted you to pass through that so that you can solve them in the future, so that you can be a solution to what you have passed through. And yeah, dropped out of school more than 13 times in my life. I've been struggling with her since. Most of the time I let's tell people I'm a university dropout, but that's not that dropout, because I had that experience. And that's why today what I do is to ensure like we reduce the number of kids going to the streets and also reduce the number of kids not going to school. But for me, it's an experience where she's my first mentor with my grandma. She never went to school, but at the age of 80, 86, she was someone who was like, you must go to school. She never knew about school. She never knew about anything. Yeah, and I've been mentored for all. When I say I dropped out of school, most people have been coming to actually light my candle. I call it lighting my candle, a candle of education. There have been women in my life. Even for me joining my T boot camp, the person who paid my the fee for my T boot camp was a woman. She's one of my mentors. For me, I've been mentored by women, and for people who ask me how do I describe women, the people who care, the people who they care about education, they care about the future of other young people, even if they're not their kids, or who they just care. So that's just a short story about me somehow, but yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think you've had an incredible and at times very difficult journey, and I really appreciate you, being clear and honest with us on those topics. I haven't gone through many of the things that you've gone through, but I've also had a lot of really powerful and incredibly inspiring women in my life. And they've been people who've cared deeply and have been willing to put in time and energy to me to try and create me into the person I am today. So I absolutely understand where you're coming from in having been mentored by women in your life. One thing I wanted to talk about was your volunteer work at Varna Trust and how you first became involved with them. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I think I have mentors. I rely so much on mentors. One of the things I realized that if you can't afford go to school, the only way is you need to be learning. And for me to learn is I need to learn from people. In my life, I've decided to be having mentors. For now, I have like more than 30 mentors in my life. in different ways. I met Nyasha. She's called Nyasha Gwatizo. She's the founder of Vana Trust. I met her in Nairobi. It was a physical meeting. I was connected by one of my friend who we met in school. And when she heard about my story, what I do with Kosi Africa and what I've been doing since, like for the last 10 years, she was like, oh, I'm traveling to Kenya. I want to meet you. And it was during COVID time. And then she came, we met, and we had a conversation. And when I saw what she's doing with Vana Trust actually in the Southern Africa, because she does a lot of her work in Zimbabwe, where she takes a lot of kids back to school, and just connected we had a mentorship program with her for 6 months. And when she was talking, she was like, oh, we want to raise funds. We want to actually redesign our website and everything. I was like, okay, well, for you give me your knowledge, you do what? And said, oh, I'm open also just to volunteer with Vana Trust. Therefore, what I did is I structured the fundraising department. I had to structure the website just to help them to redesign and ensure like it actually captures the language to the donors. Yes, I've worked with them. I've been working with them. I'm still working with them just to guide them. And during that time, that's the time when I shared the email. Actually, it was for her to be open to actually pay for my MIT. She was asking, okay, can you just get a course where I need to pay for any course? And so I said, I'm okay. As a mentor, I'm just as a mentee to you. What I get from me is a lot. So there's a day when I was sharing, and she saw an email from MIT. Congratulations for being you've been selected for the bootcamp. And she was like, okay, I've seen that. How much is it? And I was like, okay, it's $2,000. And she said, okay, fine. How do I pay? And she just did it instantly. She gave me her card instantly. I think that's the power of getting the right mentors. She's a social entrepreneur, and she mentors me into a social entrepreneurial journey. And that's how I work with her with Vana Trust. I help them just to structure their fundraising department, and also like ensuring like their target is good and everything. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that you kind of wove the story for us too about, how boot camp was sort of part of that experience in a way. I was actually wondering, what inspired you to apply for the MIT boot camps program? Because I know there are, programs all over the place like this at this point, and no disrespect to MIT's program, but there are a lot of quality ones out there. So was there anything that particularly attracted you to that program? And is there anything that you took away from it that you found really useful to you lately?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me, if someone asks me how you have learned in my life, how I've learned myself going back to school myself is one is through listening to podcasts and also doing online learnings. I wanted a space where I wanted to work on a real world project, and I remember I had a project in my mind, the environmental project with Kosi Africa we are doing called Edu Green. And I was like, okay, I want a place where I need someone. I need a place where I can build this project, just not being a project, but I need it to be a real thing. And yes, I joined. I applied. I saw MIT because I've been following a lot. I started following MIT bootcamp like before even COVID, like 4 years before. I was like, I just need to be part of this. And what gave me hope is like it was an online and it was somehow subsidized in terms, like, okay, I want to be part of this. I want to join a place where I need to be challenged. And I think MIT Bootcamp was a place to challenge you and for you to unleash yourself and solve the real problem. So I think that's what made me to apply. And when I applied, I remember when when they said, okay, you need to come up with projects, and yeah, I added one of my projects called EduGreen and that's the project actually my group actually worked on. And we pitched the last day. We were the run-ups for the boot camp. But I think today EduGreen is now a real project. For now, we just launched EduGreen to 18 schools. It was 3 weeks ago. For where we're going to work with 50 kids in every school. And what does EduGreen does is we are working in terms of, most people see social enterprise or NGOs as, they have free money, or you just want to put their money for people, maybe for education and what. But for us, is we are looking in terms of what the Mighty Bootcamp helped me is to actually get the financial model of EduGreen. How can you come up with a very good financial model in terms of, do you have a project where you can be sustainable? If you're looking for funds, can it be sustainable? Can someone see a sustainability? What we do is, it's a 3-month program where we train young kids in primary and also secondary schools. It's a club of 50 young people. And these are kids who we go for. These are vulnerable kids, actually, people who can't afford, their families can't afford actually taking them back to school. And what we do, we train them a 3-month program about for them to know what happened before, how was the environment before, how is it, and how is it going to be. Then we challenge them. When they accept it, we tell them, okay, we have this solution called EduGreen, where actually they come up with seedlings, which are indigenous trees alone. We don't do exotic trees because we want to redefine back our environment. And the indigenous trees, these are fruit trees. These are trees which help actually to remove toxic within our soil, just to improve different things, to improve agriculture. And from there, what we do is we pitch the products which the seedlings they come up with. We pitch to companies, companies which are polluting environment. We tell them, you know what, these young people are planting, they came up with seedlings. Why can't you buy seedlings in terms of sustainability, in terms of you're not just making an impact of just environment, but you're also making impact in education. For one seedlings, we sell at $2. And I can tell you, schools are very open, and we are approximating actually in terms of one school having around 100,000 seedlings per year, or 200,000 seedlings. And we can raise the funds actually for these young people to go back to school. And in the next 4 or 5 years, we are targeting to help more than 500,000 young people across Kenya. So we also see to expand in different countries. I think that's what I'm so like. What I took from MIT Bootcamp is what that project, like everything they taught from the beginning, from the market research towards how you pitch. I think it has helped me a lot to implement what EduGreen today. And for now, we're launching 18 schools. We're soon launching different schools. Yeah.
That's incredible. Teaching people from a young age how to sort of think about the environment and the ways to improve it in that sense is incredible. And I think the fact that you've managed to expand to 18 schools, and obviously, hopefully there's no stopping anywhere near there, I think that's amazing. And again, thank you very much for taking us through that journey. I know that you're also passionate about helping others cultivate a entrepreneurial mindset. In your view, what does that mean? Like what makes up an entrepreneurial mindset? And do you think there are innate character qualities that some people have that make them more suited to entrepreneurship? Or do you think it's something that anyone can learn with the right effort?
Yeah, I think there's a book I was reading, and I was listening to someone said you have 3 type of people, and I think I agreed with them. There are people who watch what things happen, and you have people who wonder why things are happening, and lastly you have people who actually make things happen. And I think it's about you. It's about your human mindset. It starts with mindset. I think everyone is an entrepreneur. It's just about how you're being mentored to be that person. Yeah, for now, I mentor around 30 to 40 young people in entrepreneurship in the world of social entrepreneur. And I'll have like weekly meetings with them. Sometimes we have others with monthly meetings. I think one of the thing is what I tell young people is we have many opportunities for them, but the ideas are so small. Like we don't have ideas within the ecosystem. For what I do is, for me, how I explain to them entrepreneurship is for you are you being able to, do you have a solution which actually, if the solution is actually solving the real problem? Do you have something you need to solve? What I do is I mentor them for them, first of all, is to change their mindset. I work with thousands and thousands of young people in schools. And one of the things is about mindset. And for me, when I talk about mindset, is about, in in the Kenyan perspective, you find like youth are many youth, and most of them today they complain a lot about the problem. They will complain about the problem. They'll be on that social media on Twitter complaining a lot about the problem. And that's for me, that's why I want to switch their mindsets. Like, okay, see a problem as an opportunity. I want you to see a problem as an opportunity, not as just a problem. Yeah, see the world as an opportunity for you to make change. And I always connect my experience with the experience. I ask them most of the time, like, okay, what have you passed through? The way I said at the start, I said, sometimes God makes you to pass through some experience so that you need to solve them. If you don't solve them, those things are they're just going to be there. For me, mentoring those young people is how I look the way entrepreneurship is are you able just to give a solution to the world and solve something? You're able to solve something. You are an entrepreneur. It's not just about like how to do market research and everything. It's about, are you able to solve a problem for the world? Are you able to do something for the world? For if you can solve any problem within your community, if you can do something for other people, just solving them. Do you have maybe a startup you want to start? What I do is I have different type of sessions from research. We have other mentees I have. They will maybe be doing their business model, or others that say, okay, they will market. I just help them. What I learned from MIT bootcamp, that's what I take. Taking everything. Say, okay, for me, this one has helped me, but I just want to also like help you and push on. For me, my target every year is to mentor around 50 young people in entrepreneurship in the country. I'm also like privileged that I'm also mentoring people from different countries, Nigeria, South Africa. I don't know how they come in, they just apply. Say, they just come to you, I want you to be my mentor to entrepreneurship. I see what you do, and I'm like, okay, fine, we can have Zoom calls. We can discuss. I can have more questions together. Yeah. But back, how I define entrepreneurship, it's just about, can you solve something for your community or solve something for someone?
And you understand, entrepreneurship so beautifully in a way that I think a lot of us have struggled to sort of take on, understanding that it's sort of like falling in love with the problem. And I mean, the problem for you is, making sure that young people understand the importance of their role in their community and their own ability and potential to become entrepreneurs and see their amazing ideas, go throughout the world. And I think it's so commendable. To me, it looks like you've worked for all of these great, I don't want to say companies, but organizations that do something, somewhat similar with youth. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your experience at Impact Africa Network, but I'm also wondering if you can tell us how you took inspiration from that and from your other work and where you kind of saw like the need that wasn't being served. Where did you, what is the problem as you see it, and how does Kosi solve that?
Well, yeah, maybe for me, working with Impact Africa Network is, I remember I wanted a space where I want to be challenged by other young people, or a space where I wanted just a space where I can get more young people, talk to them, think, and a space where we can solve problems. For what Impact Africa is, it has a 12-month fellowship program where actually they bring in talented undergraduate young people from universities who are just finishing their universities. Then they come up as a group, they work on an idea and make that idea into a startup. For now, they've been working to more than 12 projects, but now they have around 4 startups. And for me, I've learned a lot from Impact Africa. As someone, one of the things is I have seen young people changing their mindset. It starts with mindset. Like when they come in the fellowship program, then you see them how they behave. After 6 months, you just think like, oh, this person maybe has been here for around 2 years or 3 years. And for me, seeing one of the things which I'm proud, I'm a Pan-African, is like seeing that within the African ecosystem, we can come up with an idea, just an idea, to being a startup and employ other young people and bring in create employment for others. That's something for me. I'm like, wow, this is the place. For connecting that to Kosi Africa, I think most people think, I'm being asked this question most of the time, is like, okay, why can't you take time to do full time with Kosi Africa? And the answer, let's tell them, like, you need to learn first. Learning is very important. You can't go to do something when you're premature. I always tell them I was somehow premature. I wanted to learn, to know how things are done. And I think that's what Impact Africa has been like mentoring me. Like, for example, the CEO, who is Makarake, has been a mentor to me, ensuring like, okay, guiding me what I need to do. Though I'm in a fundraising department, I work with all projects around Impact Africa. So I'm able to learn. I'm able to learn in terms of leadership. How do you lead young people? Because I work with young people. Working with millennial and Gen Zs, it's not easy sometimes. But just knowing how things from leadership, how culture is, how do you create culture and everything. I think that has built me, and also how you network actually. If you're in a fundraising department, one of the biggest thing you need to learn is about how do you network with people, and that has helped me a lot. Going back to Kosi Africa, I think for me what I discovered is Kosi Africa had been there for 2 years, but before we had a foundation called $1 Back to School. But for me, what I discovered is if you want to change the young mindset, you need to change them at an early age. Because I struggled so much to change people between the age of 20 to 26 there. It's a struggle. It's a very big struggle. But when I say, okay, fine, meeting these young kids between the age of 7 to 12, it's very easy. Very, very easy. So that's why, like, okay, I said, why can't I move on and go back down, like some steps down, so that I can start mentoring them at a very, very early age. And for me, I'm a social entrepreneur, and I'm not a capitalist. Most people say that, and I think for me, I dedicated my life into ensuring that I need to empower more young people. I even dedicated 80% of my salary to go to Kosi Africa to ensure it sponsors more kids and that's what I've dedicated in my life. Like everything I get, 80% is to go back to young people. And for me, Kosi Africa is something for me. It's something for me which brings hope. It brings hope to these young people. And how does it do? What we do is we discover. It goes back to my story. There's someone who discovered me. My grandma discovered me. All my mentors have been discovering me. And they ignited me. That's why we always say, like, we ignite. We ignite these young candles. We have kids who have lost their education hope. We have kids who just want someone to motivate them, for them to start the first step. See? And after we do that, they ignite. That's very important. Where we want them to be problem solvers within their community. We want them to give back, as those candles are igniting, as we ignite, they also ignite. For we have more candles being impacted. And that's why for me, working with Impact Africa has actually given me an opportunity to network, an opportunity actually to learn more about entrepreneurship, and an opportunity also to mentor those young people, because I always mentor young people at Impact Africa most of the time. Like, I must have mentees, like 2 or 3 in every quarter, so that I can push their career, helping them to move from one stage to another stage. And for me, that makes me happy. And it's just connected to Kosi Africa with what we do. Whereas we work with young people, but we want them also to go back and give up their community. And I think,
I think that's amazing. And I think the fact that you're practicing what you preach. You say that people should, receive that education, go out and succeed, but also give back to their community. And you're doing exactly that thing, I think, is so incredible. It's inspiring to see. And I feel like in a world that has a lot of people who are, out for themselves, the extreme capitalists, or like even in the worst case scenario, scammers and things like that, you're showing that level of integrity and true to your own values, that I think is not as respected as it should be often. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, I also really love a lot of the things you talk about in regards to like lighting the candles of younger people, and how you've also mentioned before how you envision Africa as having the potential to contribute to the world startup ecosystem. That's something that I think is absolutely true, but not fully understood by people. Would you mind talking a little bit about what that means for you specifically? And if that were to happen, if that were to succeed, what do you think the long-term effects would be on the African continent?
Well, thank you so much. I think, and this is the reason why I joined the Impact Africa Network in 2019. When they were researching about the ecosystem, the people actually, the startups which are very impactful, which are in Africa. And when the research came out, almost 80% of startups which are booming in Africa in 2019, 2018, they were not founded by Africans. They were not headquartered in Africa. That's a big problem. And I think that motivated me and say, this is an opportunity. Why can't we have a space? Why can't you join a space where actually the giving young people to be problem solvers, to come up with startups? And for me, that's how I joined Impact Africa. And for now, if I compare between 2019 and now, I've seen different startups for now, like Flatwave, from the one from Nigeria. It's a financial one. And seeing such type of startups owned by Africans. There are 3 different startups in Africa. There's one startup in Africa owned by people outside Africa. Number 2, there are those startups in Africa owned by African, headquartered in Africa. And then the last one, there are those startups in Africa owned by Africans, but actually headquartered outside Africa. And that's the problem. I think for me, I'm pushing in terms of, okay, why can't we have a startup owned by Africa, headquartered in Africa? Because whenever a startup is owned in Africa, it's in Africa, operating in Africa, but not owned, not headquartered in Africa, Africa is losing a lot of revenue. The revenue does not help Africa. The only thing we get as Africa is just maybe the the employment opportunity. But that's where my fight is. Why can't we have startups owned by African, headquartered in Africa, and we can? The reason why I say that, the reason behind for me that is, I always tell people is, there is no day you will tell me that there's someone outside Africa who is going to solve our own problem in Africa. It's we Africa ourselves, because we know how Africa, we know the democratic, we know our problem ourselves. For we Africans are the one going to solve our own problems. We might be mentored by people outside Africa, but we must put all our minds together as Africans to solve our own problems. And that's why I'm so happy with what's happening around Nairobi, like the Silicon Savannah, where like for now Nairobi is booming in terms of startups, different type of startups, young people are coming up, and there's a lot happening around. But though the biggest problem here is about capitalism within startups, or some people are just solving problem because they want cash. That's where things go wrong. And this is my advice whenever I give young people advice. Tell them, do not move away from your why you started that startup. Because your why is so strong. Your why is to help solve that problem. Your why is not just making money. Your why is about solving that problem. And the time you discover your why within your startup, actually it will help you to actually solve your problem of money. But if you concentrate, okay, I want money, then you're killing. And that's why I decided, okay, I want to go back to social because in the African perspective, social entrepreneurship is very, very, it's a concern for now. That's why I want to train more young people in the social entrepreneurial way. But with the startups in Africa for now, I think it's growing. It has opened many minds of young people, and now like, okay, I want to be a problem solver. Everyone is into the market, but the biggest problem for them is funding. It's just a big problem for now, like funding most of the time. Or you might have a great idea, but you don't have funds. I've seen young people with good ideas, but they don't have connection how they can raise funds. Raising funds in the African ecosystem, you must be a friend to a friend. It's not an easy. For what I tell them is, first of all, network well, know how to pitch. And pitching is so difficult for young people. I just train them. How do you pitch your idea? What I learned from MIT actually, bootcamp, for how do you pitch your idea? How do you put yourself there? What type of statements you need to be talking? There's some of the young people I mentored from last year. For now, they're doing well with their startup because I mentored them for 1 year until they got their first funding. I think encouraging other young people in Africa to just mentor other young people and just give them room. I think that's where we will have more startups coming up. Because I can tell you the reality is, people, we don't need to tell the truth as African. We are so selfish somehow to other young people. Because if you see your startup is booming, you don't want to help other young people. There's that, I've learned about stories in Silicon Valley, and I read a book. It's called The Billion Dollar. It's called $1 Trillion. And the way that guy mentored all the $1 trillion people, the billionaires in Silicon Valley, I think that's something we want to learn. Why can people who are successful, they need to come back and say they need to give back to other young people. For example, MIT, when I go to YouTube or listen, I find those people entrepreneurs, those successful entrepreneurs, they come back to universities to teach those young people on how they did. And that's what we are missing here. And that's what I'm fighting to say, okay, working with schools, why can't we bring successful entrepreneurs to come and also push other young people at the early age? I think entrepreneurship needs to start at the early age than saying, okay, you need to finish university, then become an entrepreneur. For the biggest gap within ourselves also, it's entrepreneurship. It's about mentorship within the ecosystem. Yeah.
I think we very much agree with the statement you just made too. And a couple weeks ago, we were speaking to a college educator, and she was talking about how she tries to sort of like bring back entrepreneurship into people's minds. And I think it was Spencer actually that said, like, in some ways we sort of like start training curiosity and entrepreneurship out of kids. So I really like your model. It really seems like you understand, like, not just your vision so clearly, but a lot of the barriers that you're working with. And I that's kind of enviable, honestly, because I think a lot of I mean, for myself, but like for a lot of the entrepreneurs that we interview, I think they're still trying to work a lot of that out. Um, so I think you're on an amazing path. I am sort of wondering, though, I guess playing devil's advocate a little bit, has there been a time when something just kind of blindsided you and you had to like make a major pivot or completely deviate from your plan? And how did that go? And if you went back, is there anything to change about that experience, or do you just take it as a learning experience?
Yeah, I think I always tell my team what they know about me is I encourage failing a lot. And I think if I don't fail, I'm not innovating. Because as an innovator, you need to fail first. If you have an idea and then you're just so smooth, just ask yourself behind, say, are you really innovating or you're just doing the same thing? For I always take failure as one of the things. Yeah, my life has been having a lot of stumbles, and um, one of the things which helped me is for me, I realized my vision and what I need to accomplish in the world. That's the first thing. That's something which stumbles a lot of people. Do you realize what you want to accomplish in this world, and do you need to do? For sometimes I fail. I have failed a lot in terms of what I need to accomplish. For example, I remember I went to one of the schools because when I'm mentoring, and uh, I was to help. I was to sponsor around like maybe around 100. There were around 200 kids, and I had just funds for only 10 kids. And those kids never did exam, and I think it was a very big. It was a big thing for me. That was like until today I ask myself, why didn't I help these kids to move on? For it was a big thing in my life. Like, you know what? I have seen an opportunity to solve a problem, but I never had the funds or I never had the capability to do that. But that's one of the things, like, until today I ask myself, how can I go and solve that? And the way I said, just going back, is if you realize your grace and your mission, it actually, like, it will be difficult for you to regret in life, saying, okay, I didn't do this. You will regret, but you will have just to push on, because as you fail, for me, failing is part of you innovating what you need to have. For what I do most of the time is I actually, when I fail, I read stories. Um, I have a booklet of around 2,000 stories from kids. So, how they live, what they want to do. Because most of the time I fail, but very early in the morning I must read a story of a kid, and also in the evening I must have to read a story of a kid so that I can understand. It just gives me hope. For I know I've failed a lot, dropped out of school a lot, but for me that's what takes me back is, all the solutions I'm having from Kosi Africa, the solutions which actually are going to curb my experience. Like Kosi Africa is, Kosi Africa is a solution to this young kid who was in the street, never went to school, never had opportunity, was never mentored. But one day his candle actually was ignited. For all those tumbles a lot. For what I can tell, maybe what I regret is solving the problems you pass through most of the time takes you back to how your problem was, fighting that. That's something also, it's a big thing you need to have a lot of courage, because for me, hearing the stories and I'm like, oh man, I passed through this, I did this, they have failed, I've done this. We were to actually, maybe another thing which I felt like it was EduGreen. EduGreen was to be launched last year. And we applied to one of the grant. It was around $20,000. We were people who were selected, actually. And everything was okay. At the last point, I can't say I was pissed off. I think it helped me to understand the ecosystem. And the grant people who are around the country, they said, oh, you must pay this amount of money for us to release the grant. And I was very shocked. Imagine the $20,000, $30,000 was we were to launch to around 30 schools, EduGreen. For me, that's a failure to me. And I understood how the ecosystem works now. I'm like, do you need to corrupt everywhere? And I said no to corruption. But because I said no to corruption, I killed hundreds and thousands of lives who the project was going to have. But I think I taught myself, you know what? You need to stand as someone who actually needs to change the world. Because if I could have said, oh, I want to send you guys the $200 or $500 you want, now that's the culture I could have been having. But for now, I'm like, okay, I did the right thing. I ensured this is what I don't want in my life. This is not my culture. My life has been having a lot of ups and downs. But for me, the way I said, I learn actually from failure. If I don't fail, then I ask myself, I'm not innovating. Failure is part of my life, and failure is part of an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you must risk everything. Sometimes you risk and move out with negatives. And for me, just to tell you, if you're not failing, then you're not innovating.
I think that's probably going to be the quote for this episode of our podcast. If you're not failing, you're not innovating. That's so well said. Thank you so much. I think it's something that, especially me as an engineer, I feel very uncomfortable being wrong or being uncertain about things that I'm doing. My whole job in my 9 to 5 is to be absolutely certain about everything to the most minute detail. But to succeed in entrepreneurship and in innovation, you have to be comfortable with failure. And I think that's an excellent point. So once again, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Now, I think something that's quite interesting to explore is how someone's approach to leadership as an entrepreneur changes, and how your experience from, the first thing you're sort of managing teams to what you're working at the current level, how that leadership style changes. Could I ask you, how has your leadership style evolved over the course of your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, yeah. I think for me, it started well in the street. At the age of 6, 7, I started leading a group of young kids, helping them, even those who are 10, 12 years. The idea of me washing trailers in the street for us to get food, started with me. I started doing it. And from there, actually, I realized okay, I was not born to lead. Sometimes people say they were born to lead, but you need to learn how to lead. You might be a leader, but good leaders are born, but better leaders are being actually mentored, and you need to learn. For most of the time, what I do is I listen to 2 podcasts or 3 podcasts a day. Just one of the podcasts needs to be a leadership podcast, because that's why people mess. You might have a great idea, you might have a great team, but as someone who is leading the team, it goes. This is something I tell most people is, for me, what I say is human beings are like kids. We can't run away from being kids. Let's take it like this. When you're an entrepreneur, they tell you need to move away from your comfort zone. And as a leader, there's a place where there's a time you need to move out from that comfort zone. And that comfort zone is being a child. All human beings they behave like children. With leadership, what I tell people is it's not about how you talk. It's not about what you talk, but it's about what you do. And it goes with kids. Kids don't follow what you talk. Kids won't tell you if you tell them, I want you tomorrow to go to school. Kids will see what you're doing actually, the actual things. If you wake up every morning doing practices and everything, and then you put there your kids, one day just put a camera and then you're not in that house. When they wake up, they're going to do what you do actually. How you woke up, maybe you went to brush your teeth, they're going to do that. For also, sometimes when you're in comfort zone, you're like a kid. For as a leader, you need to understand your people. Like, okay, these people are in the comfort zone. What you do will affect everything. Culture, for me, it starts with culture. If you understand the culture, it will help you because as a leader, you're the one to actually streamline the culture. If you're someone who tells people, you're talking outside saying, you know what, I'm a great person, I do this to your people, but in the real sense, how you talk to them will actually accumulate to your culture. For me, I have learned in a space where from the startup world, from the corporate world, the most difficult people I've been working with them is people from corporate because startup is so different with corporate, like turning from corporate coming startup. What I do is, as a leader, I like so much giving opportunity for people to fail. And that's what entrepreneurs don't want. They don't want people to fail. They want everything to succeed. As a leader, is I give you a room to fail. And I need to be very careful what I say, what I do, and also who do I need to groom. For now, I lead a team. I lead a team of around 10 people in our departments. And also for Kosi Africa, we have a lot of young people I lead. But one of the things is with leadership, what I do is how I behave. How do I behave? What do I do? Do I say, when I'm saying like, okay, I want this to be done, do I need to be like a bossy person? Or, I just run away from being bossy. I just want, like, what, how can I bring all people together? Because the greatest innovation do not come from your boss. The greatest innovation comes from people even you don't know. The people you don't know within the company. For me, giving them a safe space where they can talk, where they can fail. Sometimes I appreciate young people failing. And for me, that's why my boss says, no, do not appreciate people to fail. But that's my culture. As a leader, I appreciate you because you have done something. The only thing you never did is that you never innovated beyond your failure. But you learn from that. As a leader, I see myself as an example. That's the first thing. I need to see myself as an example. When someone is talking about Kosi Africa, when they see me, they see Kosi Africa in me, the culture of Kosi Africa. When I'm saying integrity or when I'm saying collaboration, they want to see how I collaborate with the young people. That thing in me, it will just actually go back and now just it lights. It's like they were candles, just lights to other people. For culture, for me, leadership starts with the person. For example, if you're CEO, if you're founder, it starts with you. For accept people to fail and be very careful what you do in front of your employees or in front of your people you are leading. For they won't listen to what you say. They will actually do what you do. That's how, like, because whenever people move from they're in their comfort zone, they're like kids. That's why they're going to do, yeah.
I mean, that was really beautifully articulated. You said a lot there, and I'm actually really excited to get this edited so we can listen to it again and share it out with others. I think your view of leadership and how to pass that on is, I mean, it's idealistic, but I believe in it, and I believe that it has to happen, in order for the world to, become the great world that we envision, for the future. So thank you so much for sharing so much with us today. I feel like we still have a million questions for you, so we're definitely going to have to keep this conversation going. But for now, do you have time for just one more question?
Yeah.
So, are there any particular words of wisdom that you want to leave us with today? So, you could draw in someone else's words or a favorite quote, or it could just be something from your journey.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'll tell people is do not actually, what you're passing through today, the difficulties you're passing through today, it's God or someone who like mentor you. Like if you're passing through something today, God is preparing for you in future to solve that thing. Because there is no day you'll solve a problem if you don't know. And for my life, I dropped out of school many times. That's why today I'm able to solve the problem. Taking back through Kosi Africa, actually, we're sponsoring around 3,500 kids. And it's from my experience. I wanted to solve that today. Or for anyone who is passing through a very big experience, like it's up and down, remember, that's where the market research started. Your market research starts with what you experience, because when people talk about empathy is passing, going, and it's something like you need to feel it as a problem. You're the person who have like felt that problem. It's an opportunity for you not to say, okay, I passed through this, but I want to be a problem solver. I want to solve this experience. And maybe the last one is in terms of for people who are building startups. Do not build startup because you want funds, you want money. I want you to build your startup and ask yourself, what's the why behind your startup? I want that startup to be something solving people's problem. Focus on solving people's problem. Money will come, because that's where when you start seeing the world as, I want money, then that startup won't go anywhere. But if you focus you focus everything on your why, when you focus everything on your why you build a startup, it's about your customer, it's about solving the problems in the world, then that's where success starts. And yeah, maybe the last one is, for me, I'm not the way I said, I'm not a capitalist. I'm socialist in terms. If you're working with your startup, ensure the place where you are, ask yourself as a founder or as a co-founder, can we solve a problem within around that village or within? Because for me, I believe in the power of a we feeling than I feeling. Imagine being in a village where you are only billionaire and all people are poor. Who do we blame? We blame that billionaire. I want that person to go back and say, I want to bring in people. I want to do things together so that we can solve. And yeah, for me, maybe this might be the last one for the women. And this I'll tell the men who are there. Like, women are so empathetical. Women are caring. All my journey has been because women has been the one being igniting my candle. And I just want to thank all women. Because all problems we are passing through today, women, they solve them in a very silent way. They never talk. For me, is for Kosi Africa, we give more girls more opportunity. It's not because of my story of what, but it's because of one. If you educate a boy child, you are actually educating the whole family. But if you educate a girl child, you're empowering the whole community. So that's what I always tell people. This is also a time, because I was born in a place where in 1990s there was no opportunity for girl child. For that's the time now. It's like I need to come also back and empower them. But yeah, lastly is, for me, I believe so much in igniting candles. For where you are, it's not about candles of education. It's about the candles of, about whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it is what. I just want you to hold someone somewhere. Be a mentor to someone. Do not be selfish with your knowledge, because the more you teach other people, you become more knowledgeable. Do not be selfish with your knowledge. I've seen that people have been so selfish somehow, but for me, my who I am, I've been be mentored by different people. Therefore, my word outside there, mentor someone. Ask yourself, am I mentoring anyone, a young person? Because that young person is going also to mentor another person. For your knowledge won't be just there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today and everything that you've shared with us. You've already given us amazing words of wisdom. Thank you very much for that. To everyone who joined today, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate people coming in and bringing their energy and their perspective and listening to our discussions. Nancy and I and the team behind Founders Voyage feel fortunate to be a part of this community with you and for the opportunity to bring this cooperative learning experience to you each week. One last time, Wycliffe, thank you so much for the amazing experiences and wisdom and journey that you shared with us today. Obviously, have a great day, afternoon, evening, whatever time you're in, to everyone.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Nancy too for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really feel inspired by these conversations, and this one especially. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great day and evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. This has been Nancy and Spencer on Founders Voyage Weekly Podcast. Our speaker each week can be reached through our Discord server. Our intro and outro music is from the song Something for Nothing by Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. We'll be back again next week for another episode. Until then, have a great day and continue your voyage.